Hi, I'm Michelle Chalfant, psychotherapist, holistic life coach, and human just like you, learning to navigate life's challenges. With over 25 years experience, I teach people how to get healthy using the adult chair model. The adult chair model is where simple psychology meets grounded spirituality, and it teaches us how to become healthy adults. From anxiety and depression to codependency and relationship issues, you can use the adult chair for just about anything. Each week, I share practical tips, tools, and advice from myself and a wide range of experts on how to get unstuck, how to live authentically, and how to truly love yourself, all while sitting in your adult chair. Welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast. Hello, everybody. It's Michelle Chalfant, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today, we have a very, very special show. Something that happened to me. This show today is based on something that happened to me just the other day. I was visiting with a friend, and she went over to her house so she could cut my hair. And we were talking. And I said, what's going on? And she says, I saw a mutual friend of ours. I said, how's she doing? And she said, well, she showed up with some bruising, on her face and on her arms. And I said, well, my gosh, what happened? And she said, she goes, well, I asked her that question. And she said, yeah, that she, was drinking and just fell or vacuuming or something ridiculous. And we both sat there and said, that's bullshit. Like, that did not happen. Something else happened. And, anyway, so we talked about it, and the man that she's living with is abusive. And we got on this whole conversation about what's happening right now in quarantine. Women are being abused. And I'm sure there are men out there that are being abused. But what I've been reading about, and because I've heard from men too, so I don't want to exclude men, but let's face the facts. Predominantly, it's women that are in abusive relationships and they feel stuck. And to be honest with you, it makes me want to rage. It makes me infuriated on the inside. And I left my friend's house and I said, this has been a passion of mine for many years to work with women and empower them and help them, not only just to empower them, but if they're in unhealthy relationships and or abusive relationships, to help get them out. That is part of the reason why I do this whole show. It's about empowering people and helping them to find their true selves. And that means finding their voice. So anyway, I left my friend's house the other day and I literally said, I am so upset right now. And I went online and I started researching, and she'd said to me, right now, that domestic violence has gone up 30 to 40% worldwide, not just in the United States, worldwide. And I read stories online that I was sitting at my laptop sobbing, and again, crying and angry. And that's why I said, I'm doing a show. So on my Adult Chair closed Facebook group, I put out a question and I said, hey, I need to talk about this, and I would like to hear from you guys and who would be willing to share their stories. So unfortunately and fortunately, I had many, many people that wrote in and said, I will share my story because I have gone through that and come out the other side. And I will share this to help others. So that's what we're talking about today. So if you're with children, I just want to say the story probably isn't one that you're going to want to listen to with your children in the house or in the car with you. But it is one that you're going to want to hear for yourself, or maybe someone that you know. This is a show I hope that you'll forward to someone that will help them, along the way if they're in an abusive relationship. So if you know of somebody, please do share this. For more information on the show, go to theadultchair.com. There's lots of resources there. There are lots of podcasts on empowerment, on building self-esteem, on making yourself authentic, helping yourself to build up that inner authenticity. I've got meditations. There's so many things on my site. I've got the free inner child resource to help you, whoever's listening that needs that inner strength and power to become stronger in who you are. So here we go. Today we're talking again with two women. We have Kathleen and Leah that have joined me today, and they're going to tell us about their story. We're going to talk about how they got here, how they got in their relationship, and then how they overcame and where they are today and how they moved through. So I want to welcome them both to the show. I'm thrilled that they were willing to share their story with not just me, but with the whole world today, because you guys, you both of you, thank you again, are here to help change the world. So welcome to Kathleen and Leah. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I want to start out with either one. Who wants to go first? Raise your hand. I don't care. Either one. Who wants to speak first? Kathleen, how about you? We'll start with you.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So I just want to start out with, let's just talk. I'd love to hear like what your story is. Just, briefly tell us about what happened to you. How did you tell us a little bit about the relationship that you were in and how you got there?
Okay. I've spent a long time, looking backwards and thinking about this, right? But my story in a nutshell is met a boy in high school, right? You fall in love in high school and follow that boy to college, right? Because you think you can't live without them. And it was in college then that things started to turn. We had been together for about a year before I joined this person in college and went to the same college. Ended up getting pregnant in college. Ended up getting married, right? So that whole kind of interesting little circle of events. Didn't really want to get married, but at that time in the 80s, that's what you did, right? And there had been a lot of verbal abuse even before the physical abuse, right? So a lot of little things.
I want to, if I may, or pause you.
Yeah.
I've worked with people for 30 years. And what I realize is when I have women that come in, they'll tell me like just one person, not a couple. But the women will come in and they'll say, well, this is going on. I'll say, well, how does he talk to you? And they'll share with me how he talks to them. And I'm like, excuse me, pause. Like, that's abuse. Do you know that? And
Right.
they look at me like I have 5 heads. He's not abusive. I said, that's abusive. Would you share what that, like, give us some ideas of what that was like for you?
Well, interesting things because he was very possessive, right? I mean, I think to this day, he still is very possessive and, ex-husband for a long time now. But, at the time, that high school relationship, maybe he couldn't control his emotions if another boy looked at me or if I was friends with another boy. So it really, for us, started in that kind of possessive manner, like you're mine. And, he would call me names like, you're such a slut. Right? Why were you looking at that guy? And then if I were to get snippy back, like, you're crazy, right? I mean, that was definitely a set off for him. You're the words, you're crazy, right? It then became even more verbal, like, you're such a bitch, things like that. So just even things that you might think, like, okay, whatever, a guy's calling you a bitch or a guy's calling you a slut or questioning your behavior or whatever it might be.
And this was in high school this started, or did it start in, okay. So right away, like it started. Okay.
It did. Yeah. And then it did get worse in college, right? To the point where I still remember to this day, the first time he threw something at my head, college party, right? And he threw a beer bottle at my head and it hit me in the head. And people questioned me like, well, that's not okay. Right. But I made excuses for it. Like, well, he told me not to come to this party and I did. Right. So I think even leading up to physical abuse that then got worse, broken ribs, things like that. There was like just little things, like weird little triggering things by calling me names. It probably now, right? I can look back and think, yeah, he was trying to control me from the start by using, the language and things like that he did. We ended up, like I said, I got pregnant in college. We did get married. He was not physically abusive when I was pregnant, but he was very, very verbally abusive and cruel. And cruel because he cheated on me all the time. Right? So his behavior, but I would always turn around and make excuses for it. because he was one of those people that like literally would cry afterwards. And I became the person that consoled him. Right. So abuse.
So you're consoling him after he's been abusive with you.
Correct. Definitely changed my personality. How? I still don't know if I know how. I do try to figure that out. But at the same time, over, 25 years later, I try not to think about it too. But I know right now it's so important, and the show is so important because women don't know how to get out, right? It breaks my heart. But like I said, we got married, had our son. He just continued to cheat. He continued to call me names, didn't really want me to work outside of the house.
Was he blatant about the cheating, or did you find out because you were invested?
It was almost like it was a trophy thing for him, right?
Okay.
It was almost like, he would say things to me like, well, maybe she's not as pretty as you, but she's not a bitch or a slut either, right? Like all these just weird little mind things. Mm. And I didn't tell anybody for a long time. There were people that witnessed it, but then after a couple of those things in college or early on that happened where people witnessed it, he was very careful about not letting anybody witness it. And on the outside, he was this college grad, had a good job as, in his profession, and everybody liked him, this fun-loving, sarcastic kind of guy.
I hear that from so many people. They say everybody liked him. Everyone thought he was the greatest guy. Yeah. So if I were to say like, yeah, but he's abusive, they'd be like, what are you talking? There's no way he is. So I'm sorry, keep going. Yeah.
No.
This is so common. True. Like everything you're saying, I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Right. People, and you start to think to yourself, gosh, if they only knew, but you're too afraid to speak. Right.
Yeah.
Because, at this point in time, even 6 months in, 9 months in, 2 years in, our son being 2, and I got pregnant again. And just for the record, I was on birth control twice, but that's a different story, right? Things are weird and happen. And I thought to myself, well, like I have a kid. How am I didn't finish college. Right.
I was going to ask you about that. I was going to ask you. So you got married or you got pregnant and then married. So what year were you in college?
I was a sophomore in college.
Okay. So then you weren't able to finish because you had the baby. Okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay.
It was very important, and kind of old school, right? But very important for him to finish college and be, the breadwinner and all of that kind of BS. And my parents had no idea. They didn't. They had no idea. I changed so much to where I didn't even want to leave the house. Right. It's why I changed that way. I don't know, but I got to the point where I didn't want to work outside the house. I didn't want to leave the house. I kind of just took care of the 2 kids. We were very young. Mm-hmm. So, but it's the turning point for me was my son. He came home. He was mad. We had seen somebody that the day before. So this is how his rage went, right? It wasn't even just instant. But we had seen somebody the day before, and I had known this person from a couple of years prior he didn't know him. And I said, hi. Right? Hi, how are you? Right? Normal standard things that you would say to somebody you haven't seen in a while.
You had physically seen someone?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And we were together.
You were with your husband. Okay. And you said hello.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
and
that's just what you do.
Right. It's normal.
When you see someone, yeah.
That person started to talk to me. And I was like, oh no, this can't happen. Like, you're a boy, you're a guy. You can't talk to me right now with this person standing next to me.
And what was he saying? Anything inappropriate or just?
No, just, hey, how are you? Nice to catch up with you. Haven't seen you in a while, blah, blah, blah.
No big deal.
No big deal. Right. So all during the show, I remember sitting there just, like seeing out of the corner of my eyes, his jaw clenching. And I knew his triggers. And I knew that his jaw clenching was not going to end well for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yet I didn't do anything at the moment, even though we were in public, like, oh, hey, I need to try to get away, because I had a child, and at that time had the second child.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So babies, they're just babies. And he was very calm, like almost too weird and calm. The next day he got home from work, and the first thing he did when he walked into the apartment was tell me to sit down, shut the F up, not talk, because he wanted to know more details about this guy. And did I get the guy's phone number last night? I snuck off at the show to get his phone number, right? And I said no. And I was by this time I had learned to be quiet, right? I wasn't that, oh, shut up, you're a crazy person anymore, right?
I'm hearing you use language like, I had learned fill in the blank. I had learned to look for his clenched jaw. I had learned to be quiet. I had learned to do this. So you're doing your best to stay safe is what I'm hearing, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And not to get beaten up. Yeah. And to keep the kids safe, of course. But was he abusive toward the children at all?
That's an interesting story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
In what way? Yeah. And we're all older now, but that was a different cycle as the kids were growing up.
Okay.
The mental part of it with the kids, right?
Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt your story, but I kept hearing you say that. I'm like, it's fascinating because I'm sure when you went into college, you weren't a hypervigilant girl looking for when people in the room were clenching their jaw or you're trying to act in a certain way, not to get other people upset. So you're learning as you're living with him, you're reconditioning yourself to live in a certain way.
Yeah.
So you can stay alive or stay, safe.
Right. Well, there were things growing up with my mom that I learned, too. And that's probably even, a different podcast, possibly, right? Right. So I'm going to fly off the handle, but
yeah. So I want to hear more about, so go back to your story. So you walked in the house or he walked in the house and he said, sit down.
Right.
And then
what? Yeah. And, I had to be quiet. His jaw was still, you could tell he was just set off. He had been probably mulling it over in his head. Like, she's going to leave me. She's cheating on me, because he always accused me of cheating on him. Right. And I just kind of sat there quietly. And at that time he got angry because I was quiet. Right. So I never knew what he was going to be angry about.
Oh my gosh.
Like what is the trigger? Do I talk? Do I not talk? Do I sit here? Our son came out. And, and he's like, mommy, hi, what's wrong? And he crawled into my lap, and whatever snapped is my husband at the time. He grabbed me by the hair. He threw our son off the couch, grabbed me by the hair, and pulled me across the floor into the bedroom.
Oh my God.
And
how old are your children at this point?
They were about not quite 3 and not quite 1.
Wow. And which one was this? The 3-year-old?
Yes.
Wow. Oh my
God.
And
he was crying and, screaming for mommy because, mommy's crying now. And
it's horrifying.
As I'm being dragged across the floor, I said to myself, I'm like, this can't happen. Like it became so different having my son witness it as to, I thought to myself, oh my God, is he going to grow up and be abusive to people? Right. And what kind of a life will he then have? That's completely a different heartbroken situation because we want what's best for our kids, right? We want them to be good adults and loving people, not mean and excuse my language, but assholes, right? I mean, that's literally what was going through my head. I didn't quite leave at that point though, because I had to figure out how to do it. Right. So
wait, slow it down a little bit more because I'm thinking he's dragged you into now to the bedroom. What happened? So your son's in the other room.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
So my ex-husband yelled at him to go sit down. I mean, the angry, not like, when a mom just yells because the kid, spilled change. Right. Yeah. I mean, this was that angry kind of and like
enraged.
The glimpse of my son that I got out of the corner of my eye because, by this time, the hand on the throat, grab the hair, kind of choking type of situation. I could tell that there was just kind of horror. He went white as a ghost, the 3-year-old. And So he did go sit down behind closed doors. The punching always happened. He generally was very careful about punching me in the face because he had done that once and people question it, right? And getting things thrown at your head. But there were that was the choking episode, and punching in the ribs always happened.
Because no one's going to see that. Who's going to see that?
Right.
But you certainly feel it. Yeah.
Right. And, I could tell that I actually thought I was going to die at that moment. I really thought I was going to die because the choking. I kind of got to the point where I could handle some of the other things, the grabbing, the punching, the arm clenching, even the ribs and things like that. But the choking this time was worse. And it's interesting because, I still can't watch movies where people are being choked or suffocated. I've got this weird thing about suffocation.
Yeah.
And and then, he had the type of brain, at that time, probably still does, but where all of a sudden he would just stop.
For no reason.
For no reason.
And did you ever try to fight back or try to calm him down or?
Well, he was pretty good at the choking thing. So you really couldn't even talk. Right. And honestly, often I just closed my eyes. Right. So early on, I was a fighter, right. Mm-hmm. Throwing the bottle at my head or, I tried to push back, but when you push back, if they're in a rage, it doesn't matter.
No,
it doesn't matter if you're strong. Mm-hmm. They are 100 times as strong as you are.
They've got that adrenaline. Yeah. So forget it.
My wrists, there were times when he would grab my wrist and my wrist would just, I felt like he was breaking my wrist, because he would just hold you down and don't say no to anything. And I mean that literally. Right.
Wow.
So, you couldn't say no to anything. I mean, whether it was just normal or in the bedroom or whatever you want to call it, but there was
never ever were allowed to say no. So you really had, it sounds like you were almost a robot. Like when it came to him, it was his way, no way, do what he said. And you were completely controlled by him.
Yes. Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
So if you never went and finished college or if you had mentioned that, he would have said absolutely no way.
You know what? There were, I was allowed to take some courses, but it was like one at a time. It was in a very controlled way because, I think that he wanted us to look like a normal family too. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So it was kind of like you're trapped, but you're not trapped. Oh, but she's taking care of the kids.
Yeah.
Money issues would obviously set him off. So many things go through your head. I mean, it's just, you don't know what to do. And,
So this day when you got dragged across the floor by your hair and you were being choked, that was the day, would you say, I'm curious about the turning point because everybody seems, or most people seem to say that was the turning point. It was like, that's the day I woke up and said, this has to change.
Yes.
Was that your day?
Yes, that was my day. That was my day. I don't know if it was, my son seeing it and literally thinking, when they say that your life flashes before your eyes, mine did.
Yeah.
It literally did. And I thought to myself, it wasn't like it's not like I had a burst of, oh, I got this. Right. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It was, I went into even a different type of survival mode that, and I realize that now because I started to calculate things like, how am I going to get out of here? Right. So I was able to get a job. I was able to get a job in a restaurant. Mm-hmm. Right. But the way I had to go about doing that was really stroking his ego every bit of the way so that I was allowed to get the job. Like I know as he would cry afterwards, I'd be like, I'm so sorry you're feeling this way. This is a lot of pressure on you. So I had to turn into, I had to kind of manipulate him.
Yeah.
Right. Which,
you know what I'm hearing? Maybe I want to hear if this is true. It seems like you went from a defensive place where you were always defending yourself and keeping yourself safe to an offensive place. It's sort of like you went from that unconscious to conscious. And then you became conscious and said, wait a minute, I got to get myself out of here. What do I need to do? And if that means to manipulate him and lie to get yourself out, you were doing it consciously though. So I don't see it as a bad thing. People that are, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you were doing it in order to get yourself out of an abusive relationship. So
And I'm very thankful because, you know, I had the ability, whatever snapped in my brain.
Yeah.
I don't know, like we're talking about women today, right now. When do they have that ability? Can they get that ability? And that I think is very frightening to me because I feel for them. You know,
and I don't mean this in the way it sounds when I say I like that you didn't have a college degree and that you had two small babies, really toddlers at home, and a husband that didn't let you go anywhere. I like hearing you say that that was where you were, but look what happened to you. So I want to hear how you got out. But I mean, because I know a lot of women have said to me even, but I have small kids, or I don't have a college degree. Where am I going to go? I don't have any money. I don't have any family. And I'm not judging. Hear me now before anyone emails me. I am not judging anybody here. Not at all. But I feel for those women because they're in, but I like hearing you say that you were in those shoes, basically. So tell us more. So you went and got a job at a restaurant.
I did. It did. And I skimmed money because I had to give them all my money.
Yeah.
I had to give them all my money every day.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah. I hear this. Yeah.
Right. So I was like, and it was little amounts because he had been to the restaurant. He knew it was a busy restaurant. So I had to skim just a little bit here and there. There were a couple times that I unfortunately came home too late. So, the abuse continued, right? Because if I wasn't home if you get off at 10:30, you should be home by 11:10, that type of situation. Like, I mean, everything was he knew where I was. He knew the drive. He knew this, if you close, you should be making at least this much money. So, it became really a weird prison,
That's what it sounds. No, I keep getting the sense you're in a dungeon. Like a prison. Yeah. Crazy.
And the abuse, if I got home at midnight, right, because at this point I'm getting some friends.
Yeah.
So the few times that I would stay out a little, like have a drink after work, right? Because when you're in restaurant life, you do, that just dumb moves on me. Because
dumb moves on you for being human and wanting to have friends and going out for a drink with friends. I mean, hearing you say that, and I'm sure back then, because you knew that you would get abused, but if someone's listening to this, that's normal and healthy to have friends to go out and have a drink or to go out and have a dinner or coffee or something. That's what normal, healthy people do.
Yeah.
But when we're in a relationship where we're brainwashed, it's not.
Right. Yeah. And, so even if I did have like one drink, I'd be sitting there the whole time, not enjoying it, even though I wanted so badly, right? I craved it, right? Because as a child, I was very outgoing and, involved in a lot of things. So like that person, that girl inside me still just was like, this is crazy. I would tell myself, this is dumb, right? You need to hurry up and get out. This isn't going, you can't live like this. But still afraid, still really didn't tell my parents.
Oh my gosh. So nobody knew?
No.
What were you afraid of?
People not believing it.
Because he was such a great guy.
Yeah.
So hindsight, as you look back now, do you think someone would have believed it if you had told them, or your parents or someone, your best friend or cousin or sister, or brother, if you have them?
Well, it's interesting. The day that I married this person, I got violently ill that morning.
Wow.
And a friend of mine, 2 days before that, who was not friends in that group, it was a separate friend, said to me, "Why are you doing this?
Oh,
you do not have to do this."
Wow.
But I brushed him off. And I'm like, I can't take care of a kid on my own. I don't have a college degree. So that negative self-talk had happened a long time ago, right? So that morning, as my mother had to pull the wedding dress over my head,
wow,
I told her I didn't want to get married. I don't want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And she pulled the dress over my head because she had no idea. And she said, there's 200 people here. Your relatives from out of town are here. This is dumb. And I ended up throwing up, actually. It's kind of a funny story, but throwing up on her shoes at the church.
Wow.
Because I ended up in the hospital, did not even go to my own wedding reception because I couldn't stop throwing up. Right. So you know how sometimes like if you start to throw up, it's just forget it. You're going to throw. Right.
Wow.
So I was so sick to my stomach now. And that was a different incident. As soon as I got out of the hospital, he punched me because I ruined the party.
Oh my God.
I ruined his wedding. Not my wedding, his wedding. Right. So,
wow.
But yeah. The night that I said, okay, I can't go home because it's 15, 20 minutes too late. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped at a payphone, didn't have cell phones then. Right. So it's even a different scenario. You really
that's
have
right.
to
There were
no, right.
Yeah.
Where's a payphone? So I went to a payphone that was at some sort of a convenience store that was a block away from the police station. And I called the police. And it's almost midnight. And I told them, I said, I can't go home, but I have to go home because my kids are there. And they said, well, okay, how about we meet you there? I said, no, you don't understand. You can't just talk to us. He has to leave. You have to make him leave. And I mean, and I do remember I was crying and they're like, okay, calm down. And I said, no. And then a car has to stay there or keep driving around because he will come back. He will come back. It's a first floor apartment. He will figure out a way to get in. I know he will. Like, just like he did if I ever tried to lock the door early on to block him, he would, I mean, he had broken a door before and things like that. Like, so this rage, I knew, in a way, I really thought this would send him over the edge. And, would it be a gun? Would it be that he would be able to break in and literally kill me? But I told somebody, right?
Yeah.
I told the police. And so they met me there. They knocked on the door and he had to leave. They made him leave.
Even though there was no evidence or he hadn't hit you, they just still made him leave. Interesting.
They did make him leave. Yep. Small town.
Wow.
Maybe that's why. I don't know.
Because normally, from what I've been reading about, like there's, anyway, I'm not going to go off subject here, but I know. Yeah. They don't, even if they come to the house and they see you have bruises, they go, here's the report and they leave. Like they don't take him. Anyway, I'm glad. Okay,
and by the way, that had happened in college a couple times, right? Because I did try to tell somebody once in college early on again, the first child had been born, but not the second. And, they're like, well, you need to do therapy and you need to do this. And he lost his cool, but there were no marks. So, when that happens as a woman or whatever, you really think, oh, well, what can I do? Right.
Exactly. So, we think we can't, we have no power again. There's nothing we can do.
No power because they don't listen either.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us then, how did you eventually leave?
Okay. So, at that time, he went to his mom's house, who lived close by, and just said we had a big fight. She called me the next day and asked me, what the fight was about. And I must have had a surge of bravery because I told her everything.
Wow.
Yep. And then I picked up the phone and I called my mom and my stepdad. I told everybody I knew.
Wow.
Everybody I could. I told my boss at work. I told friends. I started to talk about it at that time because I did feel like there was, I had a little bit of power because that cop did say, hey, I hear there's a lot of fighting going on and blah, blah, blah. Just I want you to leave for the night. Right.
Mm.
You know, like you said, they couldn't put him in jail.
Yeah. He hadn't done anything.
To put him in jail for. So I was still scared. I didn't sleep. But my stepdad then gave me a bunch of metal bars to put like in the sliding glass door window and stuff like that. And after that though, remember, he turned nice again.
Of course.
Right. So there were a couple times where I would let him back into my life, right, in a more personal way, not just to say hi to the kids. And the same stuff would start to happen all over again. I became very vulnerable when my dad was dying of cancer and let him back in. Good things didn't happen. And so I just continued to try to hang out with people that reminded me that I was strong and I could do this.
Yeah.
Because the verbal abuse did not stop. Right? Back then you could slam down the phone. That was the nice thing about phones then.
Yeah.
You know, right? You could slam down the phone.
Yeah.
That was the most bravery I would have. So, you know, we had to still go through order of protection. How does that really work when you have kids and he has visitation?
Right.
You know, I started to have to where, you know, one of our parents had to be around for the drop off and pick up. You know, because the verbal abuse would just continue. But I think, you know, day by day you get a little stronger, but we have to do things because we can't. I got lucky.
Because you survived?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. But then when you have kids, right, this was a controlling story literally until probably maybe 8-10 years ago. He then started to do things to the kids to still try to control me. And I ended up remarried to a wonderful person, married for 25 years now, who became very protective over me, my emotions, not just the thing, you know, very protective over my emotions and calming me down, but seeing my kids go through mind games because he wanted to, I believe, still get back at me.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Get to you. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's even, you know, then you worry about that cycle. And it unfortunately did happen, you know, with my daughter. So she ended up in relationships too, that weren't good.
She's got you to help her through it at least.
Yeah. It's, it's interesting too, you know, and for a long time I thought, I'm like, people would always joke daddy issues, right? You have daddy issues. That's how you end up with boyfriends or men like this or whatever. And it's like, it's not daddy issues. If you do have any issues, I don't know. I don't know if it's just how you absorb things when you're a little kid.
Yeah.
Internal things that I have no idea. I want
to ask Leah her story, and I want to ask both of you that question. Like, what do you think it was? So think about this while Leah's sharing, but what was it in childhood? Like, was it something, or was this like, anyway, think about that for a minute. Beliefs that you might have had going into that relationship, or is there something that stands out? I'm just curious just to see, but let's go to Leah. Thank you so much. So you ended up clearly divorcing him.
Yes.
So from the point of, just give me a timeline. So the day you called the police from the payphone, they met you at your apartment, to divorce was how long?
2 years.
2 years. So it's kind of like this back and forth. And then
he wouldn't go. Yeah. He also didn't show up for court dates.
But it seems like you were getting a little bit stronger and a little bit clearer and a little bit stronger and a little bit more clear, and boom, boom, boom. And then finally the tipping point happened, and then you were able to actually leave.
And I also got lucky real quick too, if I can add, because I had a judge, and it was a male judge that, the whole order of protection thing, you had to go to court for it. I'm like, well, this is kind of silly. I've got to see this guy.
Yeah.
But
crazy.
The order of protection, the judge said, he looked right at me and he said, something's not right here. And he looked at me as I was sitting up there, because, you know, you have to do your whole raise your hand, is this story true kind of thing. And he said, are you afraid of this man? And I looked right at him. I said, I'm terrified of this man. And that was a courtroom. That also gave me the ability, and I live in suburbia world, right? So a lot of people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that also was just one more step to, I must have something like, do I look like I'm afraid of this person?
Yeah.
Because how did he know? I'm trying to cover it up right now because I don't want to get screamed at or, punched in the parking lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. So he was on your side is what you're saying.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank God. Because I hear a lot of the opposite from judges.
I know.
And I don't know if it's nationwide, but I know here in Nashville with my clients that are in similar situations to yours, the judges are atrocious.
Are they really? That's such
it's like a boys club. And I hate to say that, but this is not being stereotypical. This is what I have had the experience of, are these older men, Southern, that take, no matter what, they take the side of the husband. Mm-hmm. Children need their daddy. He's not, no way is he going to be abusive toward those kids, and it's like, we have evidence right here. He's abusive. He's a danger to himself and children and myself. That's not true. He's their father. Nothing's going to happen. Like I'm telling you. Anyway, that's a whole other podcast. I could do numerous on that. So Kathleen, this was so great. Thank you. Thank you for your vulnerability. And I know, because of the clients I've had, I know people around the world are going to hear your story and go, oh my God, that's my story. And I'm so freaking glad that you got out. Thank God. Thank you. Leah. Hi, honey.
Hello.
Hi. So, what would you like to share with us? And I know this is hard for both of you guys. I'm just validating that. I can see both of you. And yeah, I have got my Kleenex right here too. I encourage tears here.
In hand, yes.
Yeah, process away. You've got also, I'm glad that I can sit here and talk to you and say, look, it's another survivor. Really, that gives me goosebumps actually, head to toe. Another person, another woman that escaped and got out.
Absolutely. And now to be an observer of that.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
No, it's absolutely fine.
So I too, kind of a similar start out. I was right out of high school. Mm-hmm. Hadn't really dated my first love. Mm-hmm. And we dated for a very long time, 3 years before we got married. And looking back, there was the verbal abuse, but very, very covert abuse. It was with I was not pretty enough to be accepted by other guys. So of course I have to be with him because he's the only one that would love me that way. And I, being right out of high school, I knew I wanted to go to college, but no one was paying for my college. So it was me. Anyway, so I started at junior college, Metropolitan. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And started in the business realm. And anyway, ended up, got pregnant. I was too sick to continue to go to school. Mm-hmm. So I had to stop. And like I said, we were newly married.
Did you get pregnant before you got married?
I found out that I actually was pregnant before I got married.
Similar story. Okay.
Did not. I knew I was sick.
Yeah.
I thought I had the flu or I ate something bad or.
Right.
And so he had already gotten a duplex. And so then, I had moved in and then we went on to get married. And I was working. He was working. a very compassionate man.
Mm-hmm.
Worked in a nursing home. He took care of people.
Oh, okay.
So I think I have to say that because that's the compassionate side that I saw, that I fell in love with.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it started with again, of course I was pregnant. I was gaining weight.
Oh. And this verbal abuse is continuing on and getting worse.
And getting worse. Yeah.
So do you relate to Kathleen's story? How it just sort of builds? Because this is something that I hear from women too. Like it starts out small and little things. And I did that podcast a while ago with someone that I interviewed actually, and I think that was the Covert Narcissist podcast. And it's like it happens so slowly, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And it drips in, and it's like a fog. I think I called it like a fog moving in, and it's like it starts to distort your reality a little bit, and you can't see quite clearly. And then you start believing what they're saying as true, and your self-esteem is dropping, and your confidence starts to go away. Is that the same kind of thing happening with you? It sounds like.
Yes.
Okay.
No self-esteem.
Yeah.
Pretty much believed that he was the only one in my life.
Well, it's trickery when you're seeing this man that's compassionate.
Yes.
Working at a freaking nursing home of all places. I mean, so compassionate. Yeah. Taking care of people.
Alzheimer's patients.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he clearly couldn't get away with abuse there. I mean, he would have found out. They would have found out immediately, right? So everyone has this guy up on a pedestal, like he's the greatest thing, much like Kathleen's story. Yes. And then he's coming home to you,
and it's
a totally different story.
Totally different story. And so I had my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And she was probably only a couple months old at that time, because at that time it was just the verbal abuse. Mm-hmm. There was no physical abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why when someone would say, wow, how did you not know him? I would say, he didn't do those things to me before.
Yeah.
Those were the slow little things.
The drip. It drips in.
And so he had gotten mad at me through the remote control at me, hit me, hurt me pretty bad. I ended up calling the police. I don't know what gave me that courage, but I did. They came into our place. Basically, kind of like what you said before, Michelle. It was, well, we could make a police report. We could put him in jail, but he's just going to get right out. Mm-hmm. So I did not, because in my mind, that was only going to make things worse. Well,
so you're completely trapped.
Trapped.
You can't. Yeah. There's nothing you can do.
No. The only saving grace that day is that he knew I had called the police, and so he left.
Oh, he did.
He ran. Mm-hmm.
The day you called the police, he ran.
He ran. But of course, he came back. And then, on and on, a couple months go by.
Does he stop? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it no?
It had gotten worse. Mm-hmm. I didn't know at the time. Mm-hmm. But one of the reasons it got worse is because he started to be a drug abuser as well. Mm-hmm. But I did not know that, of course, because he was not doing those in the house. He was doing those outside of. He had changed jobs since working at the nursing home and with Alzheimer's patients. Started working with a different crowd. But my turning point at that part was he too almost took my life.
Wow.
I can remember the day. My daughter was asleep in her room. She was only about 4 months old.
Mm.
It was late.
Mm-hmm.
He had been out. I didn't know where he had been, but he came home and took it out on me. I had no idea why, but he ended up throwing me down on the ground, putting his hands around my throat. And I knew within me that if I did not fight back, he would have taken my life.
Oh.
So luckily, I say luckily, through pregnancy, I realized I could grow nails. And I kept my nails. But I didn't know they were going to save my life. Because I honestly, truly believe that. So when he did that, I pierced everything that I had within me into his arms. And it hurt. I knew it hurt. He got off of me. He left. He ran. Kind of like Kathleen. To backtrack a little bit, he would always, the tears would come. He was sorry. But this time it was late. And I too had not said anything to my parents. Called my mom. And I went and stayed with them for a while until I allowed him to talk me back in to come back, because he would never do that again to me.
Of course not.
He was so sorry. And again, I did not know that he was on drugs. So I know that that had a big play in it as well.
What was he on?
I later found out that he was messing around with cocaine.
Okay.
I have found out later that those things turned into bigger and better things. But again, that was not part of my life. That's not who I was. That wasn't a curiosity for me.
Yeah.
And so I moved in with all my shame with my parents. And allowed, like I said, allowed him to talk me into coming back. But in the meantime, I did too put an ex parte against him.
You're saying that you had shame. So what was your shame around?
Failure.
So you felt like you had failed.
Yes.
What was your failure? I'm just curious. You failed at what?
A marriage.
So I'm curious, there was no blame for him. You took it all on, right?
Yes.
Was that with you, Kathleen, the same thing? You blamed yourself?
It's interesting that came up later in my personality.
I'm just curious, like to see, because I'm listening to you, Leah, and I'm like, wow, like shame. I'm thinking about when Kathleen went from, again, the way I'm hearing it, because I wasn't in it, was that I had to defend myself, and then I became I went from defensive to offensive to get a plan out. So when I hear that you went to your mom's, I hear, oh, thank God. You became offensive, like in a positive way. I think about like a football player, like I'm on the defense or I'm on the offense. So you're now on the offensive line, like, yay, you got the hell out of there. Like, I'm so happy. But I hear you. So from an outsider looking in, but I hear you saying, well, I had a lot of shame because I failed at the marriage, but I don't hear the other part of the story. And again, if someone's listening to this, that's in this situation, like, wait a minute, if we're in our adult chair, what's fact and truth?
Right.
He's abusive. he's hurting me. He's modeling unhealthy behaviors and actions toward our children. Him. But I don't hear either one of you saying, well, it was him until later, until later. But while you're in it, I hear both of you saying, it was my fault.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Okay. And the shame that you felt.
Mm-hmm.
Because you failed at the marriage, even though he's the one that's out doing drugs and Kathleen has a husband that's out cheating and both of them are abusive, but it's your fault.
But exactly.
It's
That's
so, and I don't say this from judgment, but wow, the warped thinking that happens when you are with someone it's literal brainwashing.
Yes.
It's manipulation that has brainwashed you to believe something that is the farthest thing from truth.
Farthest thing from truth.
Oh my God.
And
okay.
Wow. And so I ended up, is about a month later, moving back into that home with him.
Because you wouldn't want to be a failure.
Because I wouldn't want to be a failure.
Yep. Let's heal that shame. Get rid of the shame. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
And, our daughter deserves to have both parents, and on and on and on the story.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, in my heart of heart, I knew right away after moving back in, it was not the best decision. He was then staying out late at night, come home, more verbal abuse. Luckily, I did not have any more physical abuse because he knew that I meant business when I moved out, that part, I was done.
Okay.
So, the verbal abuse was okay. She won't leave for that.
Yeah.
And I can stay out late. I can degrade her. Well, during working, I ended up losing my job because my daughter had been sick one too many times, and my employer let me go. So now I'm really feeling trapped because I don't have a job. But I knew I was not going to let that stop me. I made a plan. I went out as far as I could and still being close within my family. And I found an apartment. And I'll never forget that day because it was a couple that ran the apartment. I had never told anybody except for my parents what had happened. I let them know. I didn't know if I was going to need this apartment, but I needed to have it in case I did. And this man and this woman were godsends. Let me know that I told them my whole situation. And yes, they let me put a down payment on this apartment. They reassured me that if that time came, that I would be safe. And that's what I needed to hear.
Oh, wow.
Because even being with my parents, I still didn't feel safe. I don't know why, but I just didn't.
Yeah.
Maybe because he knew where they lived.
Yeah.
And the apartment he knew nothing about.
Yeah.
And so thinking that life was just going to go on, and I was doing the best I can. I started trying to find a job.
And your daughter's how old at this point?
She's about 5 months old.
Okay.
I needed to find a job that would be okay if my daughter was sick, and I needed, because he wasn't taking off work to take care of her.
No.
It was me. It was all my responsibility. And so I did that. I started cleaning houses. I could move that schedule around.
Oh, yeah. That's a great idea.
And so, sure enough, I had this weird gut feeling. And I don't know, Michelle. I still to this day could not tell you how I found. But one street over from where we lived, I got in the car. I don't know why I felt that need to get out.
Yeah.
I put my daughter in her car seat.
Mm-hmm.
I went driving around. He drove a really nice motorcycle, fast motorcycle, one that I could identify very easily.
Mm-hmm.
One street over, he was having an affair with a lady with 2 kids. And that was
it.
That's it.
Done.
That was the final straw for me. And so that's when I moved out. Unfortunately, kind of like what you were saying, in the state that I live,
yeah,
parents have every right to see their children.
No matter what.
No matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what I was saying that was happening, they were not listening to me.
Mm-hmm.
I say that I got lucky because when I look back, I know being a husband, being a father, working, you name it, all that was way too much responsibility.
Yep.
And so for him to act on coming and getting our daughter, it was every other weekend. So I went through, filed a divorce. I got full custody, but he had visitation rights. And they let me know that if he did not come with the car seat, I did not have to let her go. And he never came with the car seat. Tried to talk me into allowing, the car seat. And I was like, no, this is your responsibility. I would then watch him take his girlfriend, child out of the car seat and put my daughter in that car seat. And I was like, no, not going to happen. But luckily, again, it was too much responsibility.
Yeah. So you went and moved into your apartment.
So I went in my apartment. And, again, I had to deal with him on the phone. But like Kathleen said, you can hang the phone up.
Yeah. Back in those days, there were no cell phones, right? And this is a long time ago, right? Yeah.
Right. And so,
I miss the phone on the wall.
I know. Me too.
We could slam that thing down and we were mad. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the end of it.
He never paid child support. He never.
Oh, yeah. I hear that all the time. Yep.
And so, you know what? I guess I say that he never paid child support. He didn't do those things because, Michelle, where I feel that it is so important for other people going through this, I didn't have anything, but I had the determination to get out of it.
Yeah, I have goosebumps. Yeah.
I didn't have all this money sitting over here. I had no promise where my next meal was coming from.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, I just had to keep reaching and keep reaching.
Yeah.
And I'm here to talk about it.
So tell us about your life now. Just give us a couple sentences.
I put myself through college.
Yay.
I got not only a bachelor's degree I have 2 master's degrees.
Whoa.
I have a very successful daughter that has gone on. I mean, she's very successful. And let me tell you that right there in itself was a thank you.
You got me. Now I'm crying. You guys. Wow. Wow. Whew. Thank you.
Thank you.
You both. I just have to say, you're so brave. Thank you. And I'm so glad you got out.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so glad, both of you.
Yes. Absolutely.
And I love hearing, again, like I said to Kathleen, like you didn't even know where your next meal was coming from.
Yeah.
And I know that's what gets people, keeps people stuck.
Yeah.
And they say, well, children need their, I hear these excuses. These are legit excuses I hear from my clients. And thank God I don't have a lot of domestic abuse and violence, but I do have, I've had my fair share of it over the last 30 years. And those are and I don't even want to use them as excuses, because when you're in it, it feels like valid reasons, doesn't it? Like I don't have a college degree. And neither one of you did. Like, I'm glad to hear this. I don't have a college degree. I don't have a job. I don't know where my next meal is coming from. I don't have family. I don't know, et cetera, et cetera. And you guys, that's your story. And you got out, and look where you are now. And here's the thing. And I know, I'm so sorry we've been going so long. We have to end in the next couple of minutes here. I've kept you both a long time, but thank you, because your stories are hugely important. But here's the thing. And I want to hear from each of you. What is the one thing that you feel like it's the most important thing to getting out? If I may share it, I have not been in an abusive relationship, but it seems to me, from listening to both of you, and add to this or tell me I'm wrong, you've got to have the desire inside or the will to say, I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm getting the hell out. I'm done, or I'm done with this. And it's something that comes from within, because again, I'm I'm guessing, I don't know, but if people had said to you, even Kathleen, people said to you, this is not okay. Like, and you start making excuses and you're in the fog, right? So what do you guys think? Give me one thing. What do women or men too? Again, it's more women, but what do we need to make a change? What do we need to tap into? What is it?
Your worthiness.
Yeah. Worthiness.
Mm-hmm.
Leah, would you agree?
I completely 100% agree. Worthiness.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me, how did you build your worthiness in like a sentence or two? What did you do to help yourself feel worthy enough? Because what I know is people don't feel worthy. We honestly, the women I work with, and even listening to you guys, like, excuse my French again, but we kind of feel like a piece of shit, because that's how we've been treated for so long.
Yeah.
And we're in the fog. We're brainwashed. We have been manipulated for so long. I don't feel like I'm worthy. I feel like I'm a piece of shit, and I deserve to be talked to like this. And I don't feel worthy. So how do I cultivate worthiness? And by the way, I have a podcast on that and a meditation on that. Free. TheAdultShare.com. Listen to that. So how do you cultivate worthiness? I think that's what I call the meditation. Go ahead.
I would say, I think now, right, we have the ability to do the meditations and things like that. Back then, it was literally, I would look in the mirror, and being a faith-based person, I would look in the mirror and I would say to myself at times, God did not have you be born for this.
To be abused. Yeah.
To be abused. Right?
Yeah.
So now, to stay level-headed, because once you've been through this, right, there are triggers. I do, besides, still having faith, right? I do a lot of meditation. I mean, I'm the type of person to this day, if I don't do meditation, if I don't get in the moment And I think in the past, I go backwards and I go too far forward.
Yeah.
I become a mess pretty quickly and always have to rein myself in.
Thank you. That's a great point. It's an ongoing process, isn't it?
Yes.
Right? Leah, what's yours? What would you say?
Mine, again, that sounds very similar. Except for I turned to a gentleman at my church at the time, and because of my shame and my just all that guilt that I carried, he looked at me and he said, "Do you think this is the life that you want for your daughter?"
Yeah.
And it was at that moment, even though I would have told you, no, I don't want that for my daughter. And I'm sure I thought that.
Yeah.
But when someone reflected and turned those words and asked me, I was like, oh my gosh. No, this is not what I want. I don't want this for me, but I do not want this for my daughter.
No.
And that was my wow.
And you know what I don't understand is I remember back then there were commercials on about spousal abuse. There was a commercial in particular. It was, kind of, I remember it. I remember it. Two little kids, a lady with kind of sandy reddish hair. And it was talking about abuse.
Yeah.
It was late 80s, early 90s. Like, I know we have stuff on Facebook and, the Bully Project and stuff like that, but we need more.
Yeah.
We need more, because women might not be going out to see the thing on the back of the bathroom door.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but they might be at home watching a cartoon or watching something with their kids, right?
And there it is.
Right. But they're at home. So how are you going to reach women at home?
That's a great question. And I think we need to keep this conversation going because it's on the rise.
Yes. Especially right now.
We need to keep this conversation going, maybe even do another show and maybe have more women on and do a panel, on this. Maybe we do it in the closed group. So at theadultchair.com, or excuse me, what is the group? My brain, the Adult Chair closed Facebook group. Go join that group and let's start a dialogue. And let's start, and I'll do a post and I'm going to pin it at the top. And I want anyone that's listening to this today or anytime you listen to it, go in there and comment on resources for women or men to help them, to get them out of this space that they're in. How can they make a change? How do we cultivate worthiness? It's an inside job.
It's an inside job.
Because I bet if I stood in front of either one of you way back when and I said, oh my God, you got to get out of this marriage. What are you, crazy? You would look at me and go, You would, it's like you're in that fog. You don't hear. It's got to come from within. And the first time, this is, I've done podcasts on this doing when I talked about narcissism, I remember the first time this is why I'm all about living below the chin and tracking what's happening in the body. Yes. How does it make you feel? If you feel bad, if someone says something to you and it feels bad, pay attention. Don't disregard it. Don't sweep it under the carpet. If someone's hurling a beer bottle across the room at your head or a remote control, that is not healthy, normal behavior. That is abuse.
Yes.
I've worked with clients who are like, well, he only grabbed me once. He only pushed me against the door once. And I'm like, no, that's abuse. That's abuse. And I realize we don't know what abuse is. That's abuse. Right. Especially if we're raised, and we didn't even get to this. I want to just talk to you guys about childhoods, but especially, and I don't know what your childhoods were like, but if we were raised in abusive households or saw that, that's our norm. but it's not healthy. That's not normal. It might be a normal, but it's not healthy. So pay attention to how your partner makes you feel if you're listening to this. If it feels bad, pay attention. Go tell someone. Give me one thing, and we're done after this. Give anyone listening to this that's in an abusive relationship one piece of advice. And I know you want to probably give them 100 pieces, but what's the number one thing?
That's hard. It is hard to narrow it down to one thing. Know that you can do this.
Yeah.
Communicate. Don't get stuck not communicating.
Like tell people, is that what you mean? Like tell other people outside of your relationship. Like,
somehow. And today, right, we have Facebook. Like, you don't have to tell anybody in your town. They can tell you, Michelle. They can tell you.
Yes. Come into the adult chair and tell me.
Yes. It's the safe place. I know there's so many scenarios of where women feel like they can't tell anybody.
That's a great point. The Facebook group that we have in the adult chair, to me, is a very vulnerable, safe place. And the comfort and support that we get in that group is one like I've not seen. So start there, come in, talk to me. I will communicate with you guys. You, Kathleen and Leah, will talk to them, as well as the whole darn group will support. But
right.
I love that. Communicate, tell people, please tell people, because you got to get it out. And then you start getting the validation that, oh my God, this is not healthy.
Right.
Leah, what's the one thing you'd say?
You're not alone. You're just not
alone. Yeah.
And like Kathleen said, the getting it out.
Yeah.
Knowing you're not alone, knowing that there are others out there, not only that have walked in those shoes, but are willing to help you reach those resources.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Even though we were talking about a lot of the judges are not in our favor, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. It honestly doesn't matter, because there are tons of people that are on your side that will support you and help you. There are people out there that will, for sure. And what I would say is, again, follow how everything makes you feel. When we stay what I call chin up and live in the head and rationalize and try to make sense and make it okay, it's going to keep you stuck. Drop below the chin. Start getting in touch with how the relationship makes you feel. Does it make you feel bad? Does it make you feel sad? Does it make you feel less than? If someone's making you feel less than, if someone's talking down to you, it's not okay. It's not okay. So, I love you both. I thank you so, so much for sharing your story. I know for sure around the world, you're going to be helping countless people. So thank you both for being here with me today. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I love you too.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen. Okay. All right, everybody. I know this was a big show. It was a heavy show. I thank you for joining me. Again, please share this show with anyone that you feel like would benefit from it. And I will put in the show notes the link for the Adult Chair closed Facebook group. But if you go to Facebook, you just type in the Adult Chair, and it's a closed group, which means it's a group you have to be admitted into. And if someone gets in there, which doesn't happen very often, but if someone ever does get in there and creates any sort of unsafety, we kick them out immediately. There are no second chances in that group. And I've kicked out some people myself. So I have done my best and my team to create a very safe place for people to go and find support and love and to be able to be vulnerable. So come join us there. And again, I've got lots of free resources at theadultchair.com, meditations, tons of podcasts. Go to the podcast page, into the search bar at theadultchair.com, put in narcissism, worthiness, self-esteem. We've got to build up on the inside so we feel strong enough to leave. It starts with you building yourself up. So that's all I've got today. I love you all. I will see you all seated right here next week in the Adult Chair.